Democrats shut down the Virginia Senate in an attempt to publicly punish Lieutenant Governor Sears for a slip of the tongue using the wrong pronoun in reference to a transgender person. But as usual, she displayed grace under fire. Plus, we highlight powerful speakers at the Virginia March for Life who offered hope in the midst of a tough battle to keep abortion right up until the moment of birth from being enshrined in our state constitution. Welcome to Speak Up Virginia, equipping you to speak up on the life, family, and freedom issues that matter most to you. From the Family Foundation, I'm your host, Candi Cushman, with our president, Victoria Cobb. Well, welcome everybody to another episode of Speak Up Virginia. Before we dive in today, I did want to talk about that you apparently served as school chaperone for a hoedown dance. How did that go?
I did. Technically, the dance was not thrown by the school. I have to designate that because they care about these things, Christian school and all that stuff. But
I went to Baptist school. I understand how that works.
Well, they do one dance, but it's the kids actually learn waltzing and all. They learn like the real dancing. But this was a hoedown. It was parent sponsored, and so yes, I did chaperone, and I thought it was so fun. I kind of wished that it wouldn't have humiliated my son if I could have jumped in and line danced with him, but I didn't.
All right, so it was line dancing.
It was like line dancing because it was genuine, and it was done really well. They had somebody that really knew what they were doing, teaching all the kids. Okay. And it was. Did they do the Cotton Eye Joe?
Yes,
of course. Yes. Just at the end, there was a lot more of the extra, like so they did all the line dancing, and then at the very end, they played some random songs like that, and then they did more of that kind of thing. But yeah, it was super, super fun.
All right. Well, we have to flash a picture up here, and I have to say that you're looking a lot more in the spirit of things than Timothy is. I mean, you've got this cute cowboy hat. I don't know if the ball cap turned backward counts as hoedown style.
So this is just old school versus younger. So he is wearing his dad's cowboy boots, which I think is hysterical because, when I first met Matt and saw that he wore cowboy boots to church and whatnot, as a girl from the North, it was very much like, and now I couldn't imagine, that would be attractive to me now. You know what I mean?
He wore cowboy boots to church? That is
cute. Oh yeah. He's a Georgia boy through and through. So he borrowed his dad's cowboy boots, but the backwards baseball hat is like a Morgan Wallen country style, not a Garth Brooks, if that makes sense. The younger country guys, the artists.
There's nuance to this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. The guys that the younger kids are following, Morgan Wallen being just a very popular, they're doing backwards baseball hats, not just the cowboy hats. So,
all right.
Yeah.
So he is the hip young version of country. I got it.
Yes.
All right, well, we've got to get to the real stuff today. So we wanted to bring people up to speed with what's going on with the General Assembly. And I've just got to start out with saying there seems to be a lot of drama going on lately around this pronoun issue, especially as it relates to a transgender person. So, first we had a group of parents and kids get yelled at in the General Assembly cafeteria because they accidentally used the wrong pronoun with a transgender person. And then it seemed like barely a week later, you had this issue come up involving Lieutenant Governor Winsome Sears and Senator Danica Roem, and it was quite the thing. It's been going viral for a while now. Tell us what's going on with that, Victoria.
Yeah, I mean, this was just a normal day in the Senate, and the lieutenant governor who presides over the Senate, so Winsome Sears is up there conducting business, and she inadvertently, and I think it was pretty clear it was inadvertent, but she said, "Sir," in referencing Senator Roem, and literally she kept going, not realizing this was didn't think about what she had done. But Senator Hashmi then would not respond. So basically, I'm not going to do any more business with you. We're not going to carry on. And so it kind of shut down the Senate. Then they had to go in recess, and it turned into a whole thing. I mean,
yeah. And I thought it was noteworthy just to give Lieutenant Governor Sears the benefit of the doubt or credit. I mean, she did start out saying Senator.
Yes.
And then there was a follow-up question, and then she said, "Sir." So it seemed like it was a slip of the tongue, and then like you said, I guess she knew the next senator that was supposed to speak, and she's calling the name over and over, and they're just refusing to do anything. It was crazy. So we're just going to show a clip of that so you can see for yourself how this played out.
From Prince William Rise.
Madam President, rise for parliamentary inquiry.
The senator may state it.
Madam President, how many votes would it take to pass this bill with the emergency clause?
That would be 4/5, Senator.
And what would be the exact number for that, Madam President?
Yes, sir, that would be 32. Senator Hashmi, the senator from Chesterfield. Senator Hashmi. Senator Hashmi. Senator
Madam President.
Saravel, for what purpose does the senator rise?
I think I'd ask that we take a recess for 5 minutes.
Without objection, the House stands at recess for 5 minutes. Senate stands at recess, this esteemed body, for 5 minutes. I said something that upset Senator Rome. Let it be known, I am not here to upset anyone. I am here to do the job that the people of Virginia have called me to do, and that is to treat everyone with respect and dignity. I myself have at times not been afforded that same respect and dignity. But in this body, and as long as I am president of the Senate, and by the grace of God, I will be treated with respect and dignity, and I will treat everyone else with respect and dignity. I have called people not by their names, but by everyone else's names. Indeed, I have just put the Senate at ease in the name of the House. It is never my intention to make anyone offended, and I hope that others would consider that they would try not to offend me as well. We are all equal under the law. And so I apologize. I apologize. I apologize. And I would hope that everyone would understand there is no intent to offend, but that we will also give each other the ability to forgive each other. I have seen us conduct ourselves in ways that we would not expect of our own children or nieces or nephews. And so I would hope that we take this opportunity to be kind to each other, to be gracious to each other, to be about the people's business. That is what I hope. And I join you in serving the people of this great Commonwealth. I join you in being a citizen of this great country. Thank you.
Well, as you can see, Lieutenant Governor Sears did come out and apologize. Now, it was definitely not a kowtowing type of apology here. She held her own. And I think she did a fair job of pointing out, hey, I'm not always treated with dignity and respect like we should treat one another here. And she made the point, look, I get people's names wrong. I even said House instead of Senate at one point in that same whole interaction. So, you know, I think she brought good perspective, and it kind of seemed like she was just asking them, look, can we not act like our kids here and, you know, take offense at everything and just stop the entire business? Can we actually agree that we're here to do the people's business and kind of overlook things and forgive? What was your take on all of it?
This idea that someone makes a mistake and it's an entire to-do is this part of this victimization thing, the narrative that's trying to be driven, that like people are victims and every time anything gets, you know, that's the end of the world. And so I'm glad that she kind of called them out on civility and the way they've treated her in the past, because I do think it's just not the body that it used to be. There used to be something called the Virginia way. That's what they would describe it as. And that was meant to be like, our way is, you know, we are esteemed and we handle things and each other well. And that has really gone by the wayside. But I also want to compare it to the treatment of Senator Rome when Senator Rome was in the House. So it was a big deal when Senator Rome was elected as a delegate first, because this was the first openly transgender individual put in a legislature anywhere, not just Virginia, anywhere. So a lot of publicity around that. I mean, you know, most of our local delegates and senators are not on national shows about being a delegate, but you know, and there was a lot of conversation about how's this going to be handled. And what was done in the House at that moment was very interesting, because we had Speaker Kirk Cox, who's a man of faith, and he knew people were going to struggle around pronouns with this individual. And so Speaker Cox actually went and changed the entire tradition of the House of Delegates. When the Speaker would call on people in the House of Delegates in the past, it would be the gentleman from Pennsylvania or the gentle lady from Lynchburg. Oh. That was the tradition. It was a 400-year-old tradition. And when Danica Rome was elected, they changed it, and now it's the delegate from, because delegate is gender neutral. So they changed the entire tradition to try to not offend, to try to not put anybody in a place where their conscience was going to be violated by using the wrong pronouns, and to try not to offend this new member of their body. And so a lot of care was taken around that. And yes, there were slip-ups of that. Delegate Rob Bell, there's a video of him where he was just, I mean, they're looking down half the time. They're not even looking at the person they're talking
bill's
to.
coming up or whatever.
They're reading legislation. They're reading their speech. They're reacting. It's constant. You're sitting there for hours. I mean, so Delegate Bell makes a mistake, and it wasn't the end of the world. Delegate Rome tries to say, like, what, like, you know, call it kind of thing, and then just got corrected and moved on. The whole house didn't shut down. So I feel like, and it kind of just symbolizes to me how far this, like, in just 3 years or whatever it was, it's been a few years since that. It just, how far we've come to, like, this victim, like, that this is the end of the world thing now. Like, anyway, so I just...
It does feel like it's happening at both the individual and public level. So you have individuals in these situations, whether it's in a business or school, you know, or in some kind of commercial transaction. If you say the wrong thing, people getting raked over the coals for what most of the time would be an accidental statement. Then you've got this escalated to an entire government body getting shut down, you know.
I truly believe many people have trouble with, who don't think they should use pronouns that are not accurate to someone's biology, are also people who believe that they're trying to live at peace with anybody as long as, you know, there's a scripture verse about trying to not, they're not trying to poke the bear, if that makes sense. They're trying to not violate their conscience and not poke the bear. And that's what was sort of being done in the House. That's how people have handled it in the Senate. I don't think they get enough credit for trying to do this in a way that's respectful for all. And I think the Peter Vlammen case will just reference back to, you know, that example where you had a teacher who was doing exactly that, trying to not violate his conscience with a student who was transgender, but also trying to be respectful. Basically, Peter Vlammen was trying to avoid using pronouns, and he got fired for that. That's an exact example of someone trying to split the baby, not go either way in an offensive way, and you still get fired. That's how it felt for, I think, Lieutenant Governor Winsome Sears, and probably how, you know, it felt in the House of Delegates when it happened back then. People have got to have more understanding around these things.
And first of all, so you've got the issue where there's got to be a place for people with religious beliefs, convictions, to not have to have coerced speech where they are speaking something they believe
know is untrue.
And also something they feel might not actually be helpful in a redemptive way for the people that they're speaking to. So there's that. But then I also get concerned about language being used to try to force a changed framework for an entire group of people. Like that
words
becomes,
matter, and words turn into beliefs, right? So, like, it goes both ways. Obviously, what you believe, you say, but it's also true that if you get forced to say something enough, you begin to believe it. And so our society is trying to force words to change beliefs. That is happening.
Yeah, because it's one thing. I think we can all understand someone truly is agonized, they're struggling with their gender. You know, you don't want to poke that bear, as you said, if someone in some angst, you know, struggling with that. But it goes beyond that into this is in a public arena. There's punishment. It does start to feel like to me that we're escalating to almost a communist struggle session. You know, if you say the wrong word, even if it's an accident, there's this public
chastising. Yes.
So
I think that's absolutely true, and we need to be really careful because this idea of, you know, in this case, sort of like, let's shame Lieutenant Governor Winsome Sears for making this mistake. I mean, that's sort of what this was about.
When you refuse to do business,
right. This is like we want to humiliate. We want to make a big point that this was so terrible. But also, we got to remember there's also policies that try to do the same thing. We saw it in Fairfax County under their bullying policy. There was this idea of
malicious.
I was trying to look for the word. Thank you. Malicious. I'm struggling with my words today. Misgendering.
Get those words right, Victoria.
Yeah, I better, because I don't want to make a mistake around it. But really, there was a big, I mean, it was sort of like, if someone does this was going to be a major offense in Fairfax County. And it was a question of, well, what is malicious misgendering? Well, now we also have a bullying bill in the state legislature that has gone all the way through the House. It's just about to pass the Senate, so we hope we can block it. But it's on the Senate floor. So by the time this launches, it could be actually headed to the governor. And the definition of bullying has turned into being tied to the Virginia Human Rights Act. So no longer is it the action to bully someone is to say these terrible things and be aggressive. No, now it's what you do in relation to what type of person. So, is it about their gender or their race or their gender expression, which is one of the things. And so we're very concerned because it has a very broad definition. And what does that mean about pronouns? When if that law goes into effect, it's very unclear to us. Is someone going to consider someone using the wrong pronoun bullying under state law?
Right.
And how does that get implemented into our schools?
Yeah. And how do you define what's malicious or how it's like policing language, policing
Are we going to
pronouns?
get to the point where it's more than shame, it's more than a public display, it's actual school punishment?
Because we would agree it's never okay to purposefully, repeatedly bully someone over and over.
Absolutely.
Yeah. This is about, are those twisted into mechanisms for pushing an agenda, controlling speech?
Right. Yeah. I think we're just concerned that there is a conformity being required. And for Christians, conforming to things that are not true and are not of God, those things start to matter.
It's like the live not by lies kind of
Yes,
thing.
exactly. Fabulous book, by the way.
Yeah.
Book
All right.
club.
Well, that's a sobering topic. So I'm glad we have something joyful to talk about today. And that is some highlights from the Virginia March for Life that we weren't able to share last time. But now we've got the video of the rally. And speaking of Winsome Sears, we mentioned last time how she got emotional when she went up to speak at the rally. So let's just listen to a clip of that.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. I got to tell you, I'm overcome because I'm looking at all of my fellow legislators here, and they all support life. They all support life. They're not afraid to stand and be counted.
Victoria, help us understand what was happening with the emotion we saw coming from her in that moment.
Well, I think that she's just been, in the Senate body kind of being battered around, and that the Senate has been passing so many terrible things that I think when she saw that many amazing pro-life legislators, I mean, it might hit you on another day, but I honestly think we're at the end of a session where all she has seen is really horrible things going through and speeches that are just counter to everything we believe in. So I think she was just moved by, there's still good people here, and like
a
seeing
lot
them
of
all
them.
together, and there was a large quantity. I think that was just for her a big encouragement.
Yeah, because she said you don't know what it takes and how important it is to stand up and be counted. So I think that...
Yeah, I think she understands honestly, when these people step forward to be associated with the unborn or anything sort of on the conservative side, they pay a price. They're beaten up in the
We don't
in that
always
body.
see that.
No, so I just think she appreciates that more than most.
And we do thank God for all of those representatives that have stuck their neck out to speak up for the unborn.
Yeah.
Well, let's just hear a little bit more of her speech. So you don't just get that part. Want to let you hear a little bit more of the meat of that.
Listen, at some point, we know we're going to have to give an account for the things that we do. And it starts with the one verse in the Bible, Genesis 1, verse 1. In the beginning, God. In the beginning, God, and everything else flows after that. And so I say to you that I stand here knowing full well that the media is going to chastise me, knowing full well that they're going to call me everything but a child of God, knowing full well that I'll get the ridicule, and so will my fellow legislators and electeds, but it's okay. We've been there, done that, don't have the t-shirt, don't want it, but it's the right thing to do.
I just love that for Lieutenant Governor Sears, everything gets back to Scripture. Everything gets back to what God says about these things, and that's the starting point, that God creates life, and that's where our dignity and our recognition comes from. And she just always gets right to the point of, like, I'm accountable to God, ultimately. And she just believes that and lives her life that way and speaks that way. And if more of us did that.
She's unabashed about it. It's
Yeah,
inspiring.
no, she's just very, I mean, she will say, you know, at the end of the day, I work for the people, but I report to God. You know, that's the way she views things. And so she, I think, put that out in her speech really well, just that, you know, that life is God made it, and that's where it begins.
And it kind of seemed like God was using all of the speakers to kind of echo those themes, you know, because after that we had president of Liberty University, Don DeCostin, and he just gave this super powerful reading of Psalm 139, and then he reminded us that, you know, that many people agree on when life begins, you know, and he talked about scientists, but also the founders and their words in the Declaration of Independence. So let's just listen to a clip of that real quick.
In the words of one writer, you didn't just come from an embryo. You once were an embryo who has continued to develop exactly as humans were designed to do. Sonographers know it's a baby because they can see the little one in all its glory on the sonogram screen. They point to fingers and toes and noggin and nose to celebrate the wonder of human life before their very eyes. Every parent or grandparent who has ever placed a sonogram picture on their refrigerator testifies to this undeniable truth. Scripture knows it's a baby because from cover to cover of our sacred book, we see echoes of Psalm 139. For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place. When I was woven together in the depths of the earth, your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. And sensible people of every stripe surely know that the ones for whom we march today are just as valuable and worthy of life than those of us who are marching on their behalf. Today, we march for life because God has given every human being the right to life. As the Declaration of Independence declares with great enthusiasm, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Note here the divine sequence of these three glorious rights: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. For without life, there is no liberty. And without liberty, the kind of happiness our founders envisioned is nothing but a dream. And when life is not protected for the most innocent among us, that dream becomes a nightmare. How providential that these words representing these rights were first drafted by a Virginian.
Well, I think it's amazing that here you have a decorated retired major general, and he is in this role of equipping the next generation. That's how he views what's really most important at this point. With all of his background, he's there saying, like, you know, standing at a university with just thousands and thousands of kids, having this kind of influence. So, and then that he's willing to come down and not just sort of be in your bubble out at your university, sharing important things, but actually come and influence down at the legislature. I think that's powerful.
Well, he actually came with the students
Yeah,
and marched.
and he brought them,
right?
right.
Yeah, they were marching, so it was awesome. Well, I also am very appreciative of him mentioning our founding documents, just in light of this whole struggle that we have going on with the founding document here for the state of Virginia, our Constitution, and efforts to put, you know, unlimited abortion into that. And you hit that head on with a lot of passion in your speech at the rally, so I definitely wanted to play some of that. I just got to say, what I love about this clip we're going to play is that you were very realistic about the challenge we're going to face, but you offered hope at the same time. So let's just listen in on that part.
And now these extremists want to put unrestricted abortion extremism into our own Constitution. But we can stop the extremism. You see, we carry the message of hope. We tell women the truth, that they can, in fact, be moms and still have their career and go to school. We offer up the pro-life community to give them support that they need when something seems impossible. We confront the abortion industry who prey on women for profit. You see, abortion will only ever truly end in Virginia when women stop believing the lie that a child is, rather than being an unending blessing and joy, will be some end to their path of achievement. Abortion ends when women believe that a child entering the world, even as the result of heartbreaking circumstances, is the beautiful phoenix rising from the ashes, not a burden. Abortion ends when the tough in utero diagnosis is no longer treated like a plague that needs to be taken out, but instead is the opportunity to help our society learn how to love those who are different from ourselves. Abortion ends when a young person, a pregnant girl, is unprepared to parent, but she sees her situation as the wonderful option for adoption that allows her unborn child to continue to live in someone else's wonderful family. We, the pro-life movement, have work to do to reorient our society in having hope in the future, to loving all people and supporting all pregnancies. In the meantime, we engage in the political sphere to stop more women from being harmed with false information.
Well, I have to say, Victoria, you were full of fire on that one, and it translated well.
Well, I mean, this is obviously an issue that I'm passionate about, and we're in a tough moment. So I just felt like there's real value in people understanding how difficult the moment is, but that our faithfulness will be rewarded, that we can change a culture. It just takes time and effort and painting a vision of what it looks like to be a society that values human life. I mean, that's really that isn't just about legislation, although it really is about our Virginia Constitution in many, many important ways, but it is bigger than that.
Yeah. How can people help get that vision out more? I mean, you expressed it so eloquently, so how can people take that and just get it out there more?
Well, I think it's in the simple ways. I think sometimes we overcomplicate it. I think if people, I've probably mentioned this on this podcast before, but if people just helped others see the beauty and wonder and amazingness of children in all circumstances, that they are so precious and that families are so good for our society. If we could just kind of constantly be planting those positive seeds about family, then we wouldn't look at unplanned pregnancy as the end of the world, right?
Yeah.
Then we wouldn't look at it as, oh, she needs a solution to her problem. No, we'd look at it as, this is a blessing. It's poorly timed in her life. This wasn't the plan, but God has something redemptive for that situation, and we just need to have those conversations and be planting those positive seeds.
Yeah, well, that is a perfect segue into Delegate Freitas's clip. Delegate Nick Freitas, he addressed that very thing. He talked a little bit about how he himself was an unplanned pregnancy. There was pressure. There was people advising his mom to abort, and she chose life, and how that has obviously changed his perspective. So let's just hear from Delegate Freitas.
But if you want to change the minds in that building over there, it's going to start with the minds in your own family. If you want to know why there is no way I will ever surrender on this issue, it is very simple. It's because I was not planned. My mother gave up a lot for me to be here. She chose me because she saw it as a moral obligation that she had helped create a human life and now had an obligation to protect it. And she instilled in me that same sense of devotion and dedication to that principle. So the question is very simple. What do your children, what do your grandchildren believe about this issue? Because that is ultimately what is going to decide what is believed in that building over there. This is not the first stop in this fight or this journey. It's the final stop. Because ultimately what I want is a society where abortion is unthinkable.
All right, well, Delegate Freitas referred to what's happening in that building. He kind of pointed over to the Capitol. So maybe this would be a good time to ask you what's happening in that building. Bring us up to speed.
Yeah, well, we are towards the very end of session, so we have a lot of bills headed to the governor's desk. So I think we ought to just mention a few that are really important. First one, I'd have to say House Bill 110, which is the Rent a Womb bill. We've talked about this before, but it's the idea that we're going to commercialize surrogacy and sort of exploit women that might need extra money for their womb to become, the beginning of a child not being with their mom and their dad. I mean, that surrogacy, the commercialization, it's just a disaster. And so that is a very unfortunate bill. We are really wanting the governor to veto. We need people to act quickly. So again, we'll throw up on the screen something about how you can contact the governor quickly on that one. But again, all these things connect to each other, right? Like surrogacy connects to human trafficking and other things. So we need people to help everyone see the larger picture. Sometimes they see an individual bill, and we need the governor to kind of connect the dots, that these things are really unhelpful, and that no amount of money that surrogacy brokers can pay to procure, a surrogate mother, that's not good.
Let's put that in language from it. So that means there's no limit on what
There's,
a
like, no
third party
regulation.
or what they could pay these women. So that really does lead to exploitation.
This is an entirely unregulated industry they're trying to put in. Let's just let this be allowed, but no parameters around it. So yes, it's a disaster. There is no limit to what you can do to try to create this industry. And yeah.
It just feels like with these things, whether it's marijuana or this, we just kind of throw these things out there, and then, you know, once it gets the nose gets under the tent, then it can just kind of explode. It just seems like there's a pattern with these things.
We have a little bit of, and I have to say this with care, but capitalism run awry, which is to say that when anything looks like it could yield money for our Commonwealth, you know, if any business, any industry can come in and make money and somehow it will fuel the economy, no matter what it is, the General Assembly tends to say, oh, we want that. No, in the case of marijuana, in the case of gambling, in the case of commercialized surrogacy, no, there's a cost sometimes. So we have to understand that certain things, the cost is not worth the benefit, but they just helping them see that.
But it's a skewed view of capitalism because
it's exploiting human beings.
Yes, exploitive and not, as we have said before, strengthening local mom and pop shops that would be redemptive.
Yes, correct. It's a very, very confused view of what is actually going to help the economy.
All right. Well, getting kind of back to that was good. Getting back to these life issues, did you want to quickly update us on both the SHIELD laws and also something controversial with contraceptives going on right now?
So we also have these SHIELD laws, and they're headed to the governor's desk as well. And the idea is, again, that we're going to create Virginia to be a place where we protect abortionists. So if they want to send chemical abortion pills across the border, pharmacists or doctors, whoever's playing into that, we're going to basically say that's fine. It won't affect their license here. The governor from another state can't come and, you know, expect that we're going to turn over that doctor for illegally, you know, for violating their state's laws. So those are SHIELD laws, and they are headed to the governor. We are, again, asking folks to contact the governor and just make sure he's very, very clear. I mean, he's a pro-life governor. Hopefully he understands these situations well. But we need a veto
he needs
pen.
the support.
We
for
need
that.
a lot of
he needs to hear your support.
we need a lot of vetoes on these. And then you mentioned a contraceptive bill. So there are some bills that are passed under the guise of increasing access for contraceptives. That's sort of how you're going to read about them in the newspaper. But I'll just mention, that really what they do is they also include the definition of abortifacient. So that's the first thing is when they say contraception, know that it is not just contraception for those of us who are pro-life. It is often abortifacient. So anytime you read the word contraception, you need to ask yourself, are they including just what we would call contraception, or have they gone beyond that? And then the second component is the idea that it applies to any person. It's like access. It's like required access, that anybody has to be able to get access. Well, guess what? That means we're talking about minors. And so we're very concerned about underage kids and having access to abortifacients. I mean, that's kind of the worst case scenario.
Because it uses the word person, not adult.
Right. It's not defining.
So if you have a right.
Yes. Vague terms are really important. And yes, it appears you have a right, and there's no religious exemption. So we get into things about, you know, what about people that are pharmacists that are worried about their conscience?
Yeah, so there's the problem, do our kids have the right, and then religious freedoms for pharmacists and things like that.
Yes.
All right, well, give us one more time. How do people take action on these things going to the governor? So the most urgent thing that we think will be at the governor's desk, probably at the time that they hear this, is that rent-a-womb bill. I think that was HB 110. So what do they do on these things that you've asked them to contact the governor about?
I mean, the easiest thing is just go into our website, familyfoundation.org. We have a banner across the top, and you just click that, and it'll give you the spot. It'll tell you about the bill. That's the easiest. So I always recommend that.
And then make sure you're getting our alerts, because we do send the alerts out when it's urgent.
Yep.
So familyfoundation.org/alerts. And then I thought I would send us out today with just a good standing together reminder. And I thought we'd leave you with this little clip of the chant at March for Life, "We speak for life." And remember, we are stronger when we speak together. See you next time.
We speak. We speak. We speak. I love it. That is an awesome way to start out this morning.